Well, hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female. Oh dear, it's all so confusing, isn't it? Anyway, my guests are two Caribbean gay men who are involved with the Caribbean Equality Project. We're going to talk about the unusual experience of being both Caribbean and gay. And sometimes that can be quite difficult. And we're about to find that out. My guests are, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hi everyone, I am Mohamed Q. Amin. I am the founder and executive director of the Caribbean Equality Project.
My name is Marcus Persuad. I am the social media director for the Caribbean Equality Project.
Okay, now, one of you is Muslim, that's you, Mohammed.
That'll be me, yes, I am.
And one of you is Catholic, that's you, Marcus.
Absolutely.
So, are there differences in the religious outlook of one religion versus another and being Caribbean? Or does being Caribbean trump, forgive the expression, trump the religious differences? Yeah.
I know for me, I grew up in a really strict Muslim household. I remember going to Jummah prayers, which is every Friday in the Muslim faith. Being Guyanese, Islam and Hinduism and Christianity are three of the most prevalent religion in the Caribbean, but it also breeds a lot of negative connotation when it comes to LGBTQ folks. Islam in itself explicitly says it's against the religion to be gay. As a queer Muslim, I know who I am. I know my heart. I know who I love, and I know that can be hateful, and I know that cannot be wrong. But through all of that, I still maintain my faith, and I maintain my pride in being who I am as well.
How about you, Marcus?
Being Catholic and being gay. Well, I didn't know I was gay, or I didn't come out until I was 23. I'm 30 now. So that's, 7 years ago. So that's when I came out. But I was active in the Catholic faith from birth until, let's say, 11. But then there was no inclination of being gay or homosexuality by any means. It was straight Catholic, Caribbean. I'm Guyanese. This is my family. This is my culture. There was no disconnect. I knew that being gay was not accepted. It wasn't okay. But I didn't know what that means and how that translates to me as a person. But then I didn't know that I identified as gay. So this thing is not okay. I don't identify it, so that's okay. I don't have to worry about this part of me. So growing up, it was completely fine. Catholic background, going to church, Sunday school. My next step, in my path, in my 7 sacraments of holy, 7 sacraments is holy matrimony is next. So I didn't feel any prejudice towards myself with the Catholic faith at all. It was open. I grew up, in a now open household. There was no prejudice at all.
So how about your family?
My family, now my parents are pretty accepting. My extended family, my grandparents, on both sides, my mom and dad, are not very accepting. I have a lot of imams, which are equivalent to the priests in the faith.
Right.
I do not get along with one of my uncle who is an imam. I've actually been told to leave several family functions because.
And did you?
No, I didn't. I stood my ground. But it also reminded me that being queer and being Muslim and being an immigrant in this country, you could also be an outcast in your own family. And many of the Caribbean islands are actually started governing by religious laws, and the religion itself, Islam and Hinduism and Christianity, holds strong roots in the Caribbean, and many of the churches and the mosque and the temple, they still preach against LGBTQ relations in the Caribbean. And many folks are being raised in a country knowing that it's illegal to be who they are, and being a Muslim or being Catholic or even being Hindu, if your family is religious and you are sort of pushed into the faith and you are pushed to go to temples or the mosque every week, you're sort of conditioned to believe that who you are is illegal, not only by your country because the law tells you you're illegal, but now your faith also says who you are is wrong. So that creates a lot of trauma for a queer person. It creates a lot of ancestral trauma for generations of queer folks that are living and also migrating to the U.S. now. And there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And it's also one of the reasons why we created the Caribbean Equality Project. In 2013, my brother and I were involved in a hate crime incident. And because of that incident, we took some time to heal.
You were taken for lovers even though you were brothers, is that it?
No. My brother is also queer, and I have a partner, and he had entered a competition, a cooking competition. And my siblings are also very supportive of me who I am and my brother. And we went to an event to support my partner. And we were actually attacked at the event because of who we are. And
At a cooking competition?
At a cooking competition.
That's very strange.
In Southeast Queens. Southeast Queens is a very Caribbean community. It's predominantly Indo-Caribbeans and Afro-Caribbeans.
Right.
I am really proud of my culture. I'm really proud of being Guyanese. I'm really proud of our music and our food. And just being a vibrant community in Richmond Hill. But also there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of homophobia that we're dealing with. There's a lot of anti-Blackness. There's a lot of racism that still exists within our community. And also when it comes to being queer and living your truth and being honest with yourself, that also doesn't translate into you being safe in your own community. And for us, we experienced that hate firsthand. We didn't necessarily have a space to go to heal that would be able to understand our cultural background. My family and I, we turned to the New York City Anti-Violence Project, and we received media support, we received counseling, we received a lot of support from the New York City Anti-Violence Project. And for me, that's where my organizing started. Prior to that, I was organizing in a community, but in terms of like standing up for LGBTQ rights and gender justice and social justice work in the community, that's really where it originated from. So out of an incident of hate came the birth of the Caribbean Equality Project. And my family and I were able to heal from that trauma. We were able to get the help we needed and to sort of build ourselves and strengthen ourselves to come forward and be more visible, to create hope within our community, not just for ourselves, but also for those in the shadows.
Right. Marcus, do you ever have problems with gay bashing or homophobia or anything?
Personally, no. But I know it does exist, and it is like very strong in the community. Within family, it's nothing towards me, but like within the family, I would hear like siblings or like uncles like say derogatory thing towards the LGBT community, knowing that I'm gay, because I'm not hiding it. I'm completely myself around my family. Well, at this time in my life, I am. But knowing that they do see it, but they don't apply it, or it's not affected, or it's not applied to myself. Being part of this organization, the Caribbean Equality Project, and what I do, it's kind of my channel to my family to kind of see he's doing something that's positive, and maybe the language, the vernacular that we're using, this isn't appropriate because we have a son, we have a cousin, we have a nephew that's doing something for good. Maybe we should look at ourselves and kind of reflecting back on, let's change the way that we are perceiving the LGBT community. It's not something that's disgusting or that's looked down upon, but you do have someone that you're very close to within the family that's a drop away, that's doing something positive. So let's use Marcus as a resource.
Yeah.
It seems that the world, in spite of President Trump, is growing ever more progressive, more liberal, more tolerant of very different sexualities, not just gay or straight or trans or non-binary, whatever. You know, be asexual if you want to be, you know. So, I mean, anyone who is homophobic or transphobic or whatever phobic seems to be on the wrong side of history, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We were just mentioning this, and just that, to foster that hatred, that bias towards someone that you don't know, that you don't understand, I think it takes a level of prejudice and ignorance and arrogance to kind of manifest that in yourself. It takes a lot of energy and effort, and I always say that I don't think I'm smart enough to do that. I can't take myself there. I'm not smart enough to create hatred for something that I don't understand, or even if I don't like. There's no way that there's so many ways that we can coexist with each other and not pick sides or choose or even fight with each other. And to tie back on religion, way back in philosophy of religion courses, and don't like quote me on this or like do research and prove me wrong, but from what I remember is that on the way to heaven, John the Baptist, there was like layers of heaven, of stages of heaven that he walked through, and one layer he passed Muhammad, and he's had a conversation, and as he's walking up to heaven, he met Allah, and everyone just existed in this perfect world. And now main cause for war is religion, or we're using it or kind of making religion the guise for war and destruction and hatred,
and
which is not fair.
twisting religion to suit our own shallow stupidity and prejudices. I mean, Islam is a religion of love.
Absolutely. But we also want to like think about the mindset of the Caribbean, right? We inherited laws from colonization that are still on the books, right? And many of the prime ministers are sort of enforcing these laws, not all the time. But
Even though England is no longer enforcing these laws.
Correct.
Yeah.
But in the Caribbean, there's still anti-sodomy law. We recently, an activist by the name of Jason Jones actually sued Trinidad and Tobago for them to nullify their sexual act, Section 13 and 16 of the Penal Code. And on April 12th
Of
of 2018,
yeah.
he won. So he won this case. Now in 2018, a new generation of queer folks in Trinidad and Tobago are going to be raised in a country that validates who they are and who they love. And the Caribbean Equality Project was able to support that work from the diaspora. We have a large a large Trinidadian LGBTQ population, and we started a social media campaign where we asked folks to print a "We Still Stand With You" Trinidad banner, just to show folks in Trinidad that listen, we in the U.S., we in New York and Canada are here with you, because my partner is Trinidadian, and when I go back to Trinidad with him, I would want to be accepted. I wouldn't want to be rejected for who I am.
Right,
and I wouldn't want to be arrested in a country
Can you imagine?
for who I am.
Yeah.
But folks have been, right?
Oh,
And
yeah,
up
sure.
until, as of right now, the law was just struck down. But in July, that's when we'll find out if it's going to stay. But
I knew two lesbians who went to Jamaica, and they were on the beach.
yeah.
They were insulted by everyone. They had to run back
Yeah.
to their hotel.
Yeah, and in Trinidad, if you are arrested for LGBTQ relations, you could be imprisoned up to 25 years.
Good heavens.
And to think about the mindset of queer people that are being raised in these countries, knowing that it's illegal to be who you are, and that type of homophobia, when we talk about internalized homophobia, our country supports us internalizing our homophobia. And then when folks get to the US, they reach out to us. Right now, a lot of our clients...
Well, that's the way it was in the U.S. 50 years ago.
Correct.
You know?
A lot of the Caribbean Equality Project clients are
They thought you
from
were
Jamaica.
shameless if you didn't internalize your homophobia.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and we were taught to, right? We were conditioned to internalize it. The Caribbean Equality Project has a support group. It's called Unchained, and it's the only support group in New York City that's culture-specific to Caribbean LGBTQ
Wonderful.
identities. We also have our immigration program helps a lot of asylum seekers when they get to the U.S., and most of these folks
Wonderful.
are escaping violence. They're escaping death threats.
Now, Marcus, can you come a little
Yeah,
closer?
absolutely.
Now, given what this administration, the Trump administration, is doing and denying asylum to people in spite of quite obvious need for asylum, is that impacting your organization?
We've actually seen an increase in inquiries. We've seen an increase in folks reaching out to us because they're literally in fear of going back home.
Sure.
They're in fear of being deported. Some of our supporters are DACA recipients, and they've been living here for most of their lives.
Of course.
And they don't know what it's like to go back to Guyana or Trinidad or Jamaica. They don't know what that life is going to be. But what they do know is if they were to be sent back, they'll be sent to their death. because they're living in a country that accepts who they are and have rights. And to be able to take that right away and now be transported back into a country where you're illegal, that type of trauma, you can't survive. And that's what folks are escaping. Folks that lives in the Caribbean, they're escaping that violence. They're escaping physical violence. They're escaping homelessness. They're escaping family rejection and family abuse.
Let me ask you something now. Sanctuary cities here in the U.S., can they override the national mandate to deport people? Can they just hide people? Do something, you know?
You know, the de Blasio administration,
Oh, they're very good, yes.
they are amazing. And one
They're
of
very good with LGBT causes, period.
LGBT
yes.
laws and causes. When it comes to immigration, they have been saying for a long time now that New York City is a sanctuary city and they're not working with ICE. But unfortunately, ICE are in the courtrooms. ICE are currently in the courts picking up
Well, they took one
people.
poor man who drove his daughter to school.
Yeah.
At least one that we know of.
Yeah.
Many, I'm sure.
So in terms of New York City being a sanctuary city, in theory, that's great, and we can send that message to folks to give them some comfort. But in reality, folks are being picked up by ICE in New York City. Folks are being picked up in the courtrooms right here in New York City.
Which it then makes it very dangerous because people will not report crime because they will be afraid that they will be deported, and that is counterproductive to a safe city.
Absolutely. And a lot of folks, in terms of deportation, it's also family separation. You're separating people who have lived in this country, who have been raised with a parent or two parents in a household, and now you're separating the child from their families to their parents.
And often one sibling was born here, one wasn't, and now a 10-year-old kid is left all alone in the U.S.
And most of the time, the dreamers that's living in this country are also sustaining their families. They're working, they're paying taxes, they're supporting their families. Not only the family that lives here, but they're also supporting those that's in the Caribbean and wherever in the world that they came from.
And I mean, really, well, anyway, how can people contact your organization?
We're on Facebook. You can contact us at the Caribbean Equality Project on Facebook at Caribbean Equality Project. You can email us at info@caribbeanequalityproject.org. You could also visit our website, which is www.caribbeanequalityproject.org. Instagram, Twitter at Carib Equality.
So just any search for the Caribbean
search,
Equality Project. Just look for this lovely hummingbird. It's the LGBT rainbow flag. Just look for that. Search Caribbean Equality Project online. Any channel, any venue, just look for the bird. You'll find us.
Wonderful. And are you based in Queens, right?
We're based in Southeast Queens. A lot of our work focuses on Caribbean communities in New York City. So we've been doing work in Brooklyn, Flatbush to be specific, which is now Little Caribbean in New York City.
Yes, it's very Haitian. It used to be. Is it still?
It's very Haitian, very Guyanese, very Jamaican. It's Little Caribbean. Everyone from the Caribbean. And just a little fact, New York City represents the largest, has the largest Caribbean population outside of the Caribbean region.
Isn't that great?
It's amazing to see how Caribbean culture continues to grow and thrive in New York City.
That wonderful?
But in terms of, for us as queer people, it also means that we have a challenge. We have to overcome the homophobia that folks are bringing from the Caribbean to New York City. And that's a big adjustment. That's why a lot of our work centers around uplifting and supporting Caribbean folks. It also means that we're educating our community on the biases that exist.
Well, so many of these communities are so insular that national laws might not apply in these little communities because they're still...
It's cultural.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of it is cultural. There's a lot of hate crimes also that exist within Caribbean communities where, there are Caribbean music that directly has hate speech.
Oh, that's
and this is played in many Caribbean communities. It's played in our household, it's played in the clubs, it's played in the local bars that you go to just to maybe socialize with your friends. And, you're sitting there having a drink or eating an appetizer, and all of a sudden you hear hate music, Caribbean hate music that comes on.
And it's so casual.
And it's
just
very
dropped
casual.
in there, like just a casual line in the song, and it's like no one bats an eye.
Yeah. And this is the culture that within Caribbean communities in New York City, which now it's amazing that we've seen so much progress through the work within the last 3 years. The Caribbean Equality Project has existed. We've done amazing work in Caribbean communities. We're working with CAMBA in Brooklyn to make sure that the Caribbean population they serve.
What is CAMBA?
CAMBA is they've been around for about 40 years. They do work regarding housing and immigration, also a lot of health, a lot of asylum folks go to CAMBA as well. But they've been around for 4 years, so we're now currently building a relationship with them to let folks know that the Caribbean Equality Project exists. Within Southeast Queens, we're working with organizations such as the Jihadi Sisters, SADNA, the Indo-Caribbean Alliance. These are all in Caribbean and Indo-Caribbean organizations.
How do you support your organization?
That's a good question. A lot of our work is actually volunteer-based. Marcus and I are both volunteering with the Caribbean Equality Project. Currently, our biggest funders is the community. We have social events, we do different benefits that our community come out to. All of it is geared at educating folks, it's geared at promoting our Caribbean culture, it's geared at creating safe spaces for us to be who we are and network and meet and just be. But also those benefits help us to sustain the work that we're doing.
Right.
We're going to be participating in AIDS Walk New York. We've been doing it for 3 years now. We also have our Knowing Matters program, which we partnered with ACQC to provide free HIV testing.
What is ACQC?
They are AIDS Center of Queens. They're based in Queens. We've also worked with the Colin Lord Health Center, and we bring their mobile unit to Richmond Hill, and we provide free STI testing, free hepatitis C testing.
Is Richmond Hill the center of Guyanese life in New York?
In New York City, Richmond Hill is known as Little Guyana. It's amazing to see Guyanese, Trinidadian, Caribbean culture in Richmond Hill. You could see different sari stores. You can see different spices, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and fish. And it's amazing to see our culture thrive in New York City.
As though you were still
as
in the
though
Caribbean.
Maybe
still
the
in the
largest
Caribbean.
pocket of Guyanese and Trinidadian outside of Guyana and Trinidad is Richmond Hill, Queens.
Yeah, and I live in Richmond Hill. I've been living in Richmond Hill for about 12 years now. So not only do I work in Richmond Hill.
Do you live in Richmond?
Oh, no, I do. I live in Harlem with my partner, but I have family that's in the Richmond Hill area. I grew up in Hollis, Queens. Hollis, Jamaica, Queens. I grew up there, but just recently I'm in Harlem.
Yeah. So, it's I definitely encourage folks who wants to experience Caribbean food, wants to have a Caribbean drink, a sorrel or a mobby.
And you don't have to be Caribbean or
Oh,
gay.
you
It's
don't,
very
exactly.
authentic and open to everyone. Yeah, it's a very
And most
cultural
on
experience.
all of our events as well.
If you can't afford a trip to the Caribbean, go
go to
there.
Little
you
Guyana.
know.
Take a MetroCard ride
That's
over.
right.
Yeah, we're available.
And all of our events are actually inclusive. We have a lot of allies. Our work is actually really supported by family and friends who are our allies, and they help promote the work that we do as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So now young people who know they're queer but have yet to develop a sense of self, they must have an especially difficult time. Say someone who's 12, 13 or something and being bullied at school. By the way, do you handle transgender folk?
We do. One of our board member, her name is Cayenne Dorashow.
I love her.
Yes, she is a Trinidadian native. She's a trans woman. She's one of our board members. She
That's
leads
great.
all of our trans work. As queer men and of the Caribbean, we don't do any trans work. We actually support trans work, and we support trans folks leading that work. And Cayenne, for the Caribbean Equality Project, leads our trans initiative to uplift our trans Caribbean people.
Yeah, and that's great.
Yeah.
Well, the best way to have an expert speak on the subject at hand. Yeah, we can
Sure.
speak what's great for us, but
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you have lesbians as well, don't you?
Absolutely. We a lot of our work is very inclusive of the LGBTQ community. Also, our allies. We have a lot of volunteers that are allies from local schools that comes and support. We also have the support group that we run, Unchained. It's multi-generational, it's intersectional. We have folks that are 18, 19.
It must be very interesting when someone who's been married and had kids suddenly comes out at, say, 70 or something. Do you know anyone like that in your organization?
They are members of our community who have been married before, and they've divorced because they realize that this is not
Right,
who they
exactly.
are. We actually, one of our board member, he was married to a woman before. They spent 3 years, I believe, together. And then they got divorced because he wasn't happy. But he did that out of obligation to the family. He
Sure.
did that out of social pressure, family pressure.
Are arranged marriages the thing in Caribbean homes?
It's in a lot of Caribbean homes you can. My parents were arranged when they
it
were younger. I know now it's not as prevalent as it was, but back 20 years ago, absolutely. Yeah.
Marcus,
Yeah.
what do you? How do you see the future for Caribbean gay people?
I think the change in the movement that's being made, it's in the step that we're taking is in the right direction. I think now that there's so many channels that we're open to, that we can put our voice out there. We can say that we need help. We can reach out to someone that looks like us. I think that's the most important part, is having these allies or these cohorts that we can go to that resemble us, right? That has their story. Because growing up, I didn't have a brown man that I looked to that was Catholic, that's gay, but held a strictly religious Catholic lifestyle, heterosexual for the most part of his life. I didn't have that image to look to. And to having my story, to have Mohamed's story, to have other stories that look like us amplified, I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, Diana, that this is the step in the right direction for history.
Sure,
we do have two sides to be on. And I think being on the right side just feels natural, and it flows easier to throw a wrench into the whole production.
Right. Now, again, can you give the contact information?
Yes, connect with us on Facebook at Caribbean Equality Project, Instagram, YouTube. You can search our work. I definitely encourage you to also connect with myself, Mohamed Q, Amin, and Marcus W. Persuad on social media, so you can learn more about our work, get involved, support the work that we're doing. And if you are Caribbean and if you're queer and you want to be a part of the work, definitely look us up, and we invite everyone to support us.
And if you're struggling and you need someone to talk to, you need advice, you just need someone that you don't know what to talk about, but you just know you're gay, or you just want to explore that a little bit more, please reach out to give us a call. Everything is confidential. You'll speak to one of us directly.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. Anyway, my guests have been Mohamed Amin
Yes.
and Marcus
Persuad.
both of whom are founding members of the Caribbean Equality Project.
Yes.
And you should avail yourselves of this if you are Caribbean and queer, or if you're not, because, hey, you can have fun. Go to Jamaica for a Metro card.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a free ride. There's no ticket involved. You're nearby. Thank you
Anyway,
so much.
I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. Be brave, Hey, we're all in this together, and we've all been there.
Yes.
Love you a lot. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a really
Thank
great
you so much for having us.